Today we're going to start talking about ecosystems, and we're going to do that by talking about ecological succession. So, ecological succession is a change in an ecosystem, particularly in the ecosystem's vegetation over time. This is a non-seasonal change as well. So it's not like it's rotating each or through each season. This is actually a change over generations as different species move in and then change and then die off within the ecosystem. And different communities are replacing one another. There's times of colonization. There's times where particular communities are established, and there's also times when particular communities go extinct. And this, even though it's primarily driven by vegetation, which would be populations or communities, it is also ecological though, and it deals with the ecosystem because the vegetation actually changes the abiotic factors in the environment itself. So the species living in an area are actually altering the ecosystem as they go. So this comes in three rough stages, although the middle one actually can go through many different phases. The first phase is primary succession. This is where vegetation establishes itself where there's no prior vegetation, and especially in areas where there's little to no soil. So these pioneer species are often lichens and mosses, although other quick growing plants like shrubs, or not shrubs, like a fireweed, are also primary succession communities. As those organisms die off, though, they actually help to build up the soil, which then allows slower growing organisms like grasses and shrubs and seedlings to start taking over. And those become the secondary succession community. It's when a new community invades an area where there previously was already vegetation. And this is going to force out the primary succession community. And it's also going to continue to change it. As the trees grow up, you can actually get a second set of secondary succession. Sometimes we call it tertiary succession, but really it's the same thing because you can go through multiple phases of secondary succession. So as the trees grow up, they start to shade out the shorter plants, which kills them off, but eventually you'll reach a climax succession. And this is when you get plants that, instead of making an environment that is actually ideal for other species, these are when you get vegetation that's basically able to control its ecosystem and ensure that nothing else takes it over. Oftentimes, this involves very large trees, although in something like a desert, it could involve very large cactuses. The key identifier of a climax community is that there's no succession after it. There's no further change. It maintains a steady environment, and that environment is fairly constant.